Hey there. Happy Saturday or whatever day that you're watching this. It's a beautiful day here once again, as it often is in Atlanta. Sunny, shining. Woke up to the birds chirping, and I hope you're having a blessed day too. And I wanted to just chat today about something that was on my mind. Actually, I woke up. I woke up last night, which I rarely do, thinking about different things. And I started thinking about Jacob in the Bible, and how Jacob wrestled with God or wrestled with an angel that God sent to Jacob. And it's a pretty classic story. Like for people who've been in church a lot, you heard the story a lot, but it never really clicked for me, if I be honest. Like it didn't make sense to me. And maybe I was trying to overthink it or intellectualize it, but I would always think, like, why would a person try to wrestle with God or wrestle with an angel of God? Like that just didn't seem logical to me. Why a mere man, a mere woman in this case would try to do that, and especially as you know how the story ends, for me, being thinking of from a highly cautious perspective, I would think, well, he ended up with a limp. Like, why would he do that? Of course, something, bad is going to happen. That's the negative side. And so growing up, and even after having grown up as an adult, like it just always seemed like the craziest idea to me, wrestling with God, and coming out with a limp because of it. Like, why would you dare? But the positive side of that story is God really touched Jacob. He really blessed him. Um, Far beyond obviously a limp, and like they say he literally changed his name from Jacob to Israel. And so it was worth it, from the way the story was told. It was worth it for him to wrestle with God because of how God blessed him. And a lot of times, especially today, and I fought guilty of it myself, we will think of, wow, blessings, oh my goodness, a new car, a new house, or new clothes, or money in the bank. A lot of times, like, that's the first thing we think about when it comes to blessings, or even something, not so external, but like health, right? We think about our physical health. And I think that's why I struggled too, as I mentioned, a limp, that doesn't sound like physical health, right? So how is that a blessing? But Jacob obviously was after so much more than that. He had already been blessed, from the perspective of what we would call rich, blessed with land, blessed with family. And he realized it's got to be more to it than life. And us as we all are spiritual beings, can ask that question about what else is there other than the physical things that we're acquiring, other than what we see. And if we dare ask God that question of, okay, what do you really have for me to do? What do you really have beyond what's in this moment? A lot of times we will end up waiting for that answer, or getting distracted by the world, and forgetting about the fact that we even asked the question. So all of us have we all have this spiritual being, we all have this physical being. And so the question is, how much attention are we going to pay to the physical side? How much are we going to pay to the spiritual side? Well, most of us, like myself, we're not walking around with this perfect formula of what that balance should or would look like, for that matter. But what we do know is we get an angst. We either get an angst for physical things because we want more physical items, or we want more experiences that are fun, or we get an angst for these spiritual elements, that are far transcendent beyond what our eyes can see. And it's that knowing that we're connected to God, that we're aligned to God, and not just connected to Him, feeling His presence, feeling His blessings, but knowing that we're walking in the path that He has for us. And so the fact that we have like this physical side with us, it only makes sense that it would be a wrestle if we are really trying to build the spiritual side. Because the physical side is sometimes contradicting, or at the least distracting from the spiritual side. It's very easy for us to get up and go and do the same thing every day and have the same routine. Yeah, sure, there are people who live their lives as creatives who this may sound very foreign to, but most of us, it's very easy for us to do that. And when we are doing that, the spiritual side, it can get pretty easy to ignore because quite honestly, it's harder to understand. It's harder to see for most of us. And so most of us have to make more of an effort to see it because it's not always in our face the way the fleshly side is. And so for Jacob, it wasn't enough. Like he had this spiritual angst. He said, okay, I saw all these physical blessings around me, but I know there's more to me. I know that there's this spiritual side. I know that there is a way beyond these physical elements that God also can bless me. And I want him to want to bless me in that way. And I need to let him know that. And so with Jacob, it was like, I'm going to wrestle all night, and that night could be symbolic for obviously a much longer time in our lives. But that was a long night. And in the word, the angel is telling Jacob to let him go. And Jacob said, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. And in that sense, you might think, well, why would an angel, and these are questions I asked when I first heard this story, why would an angel ask for what sounded like mercy, or, what sounded like a surrender? I personally believe that the angel was testing Jacob to see how bad do you really want it? How bad do you really care about these things beyond yourself and your immediate visibility? That's what I personally believe that the angel was saying. And the limp, there could be many reasons for the limp. Some people believe that the limp is purely because Jacob fought against the angel. And maybe that's the case. But I think maybe also the limp was to remind Jacob of a sacrifice that's far greater than him. And to remind Jacob that yes, there may be a price for things that you do that's greater than you, but to show the world that sometimes it's worth it to pay that price. That limp could be a myriad of factors. That limp could be connected to Jacob in his life. Jacob didn't live a perfect life like none of us have. And we don't even need to go into Jacob's laundry list because we all have our own laundry lists. But that limp, that's not something that I think anybody here can explain perfectly because God never told us with 100% why he gave Jacob the limp. And so from my perspective, it could be a myriad of reasons. But at the end of the day, I do believe that the limp was worth the blessings that Jacob got. And I think another part of that story that I've been alluding to is that sometimes to get to that spiritual place with God, to transcend to it, it requires effort. It requires a price. It may even require sacrifice that hopefully, myself at least, hopefully we find it to be worthy. So when I look at my own life right now, I feel like I'm finally I finally have the courage, the boldness, the audacity to wrestle with God. And it's taken a long time. And I believe why I have the courage to do it is because at this moment in my life, at this point in my life, living a long life and plan to live an even significantly longer one, like I am desperate to know exactly what God wants me to do in every moment. I'm desperate to live God's purpose in my life to its fullest. And at this point, I have the courage to say, okay, God, there may be some things I have to put aside. There may be some things I have to do differently. There may be some pulling and tugging on you that I have to do, God, in order to get to that blessing that you have in my life, to get to that blessing beyond what my eyes can see, to get to what I see is that perfect, as perfect at least as alignment gets with God. And I do say that it's courageous because I will tell you there have been times I have not had the courage to say that, or the courage to even say, God, use me in any way that you have to use me. And some people, you may have always had the courage to say that. I have not. But this is a moment where I do have the courage to say that. And I am asking God to use me in any way that he chooses to use me, as I hope that you have the courage to say that also. And if you don't have it today, I pray that you will have it one day as well. I can't tell you what this is going to lead to, but I can tell you that it feels light because God told us his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And from my understanding, a condition to that is us really, releasing, surrendering that burden to him, surrendering that yoke to him. And that's not just the burden of the things we don't want, in my opinion. The yoke and the burden to me is the decisions, the choices that we make in our lives. They all come with benefits and or consequences. And so when I surrender as I choose to do my yoke and my burden to God, what I'm also doing is saying to God, I'm surrendering the decisions that I make as well. And so I'm thankful to be to a place to say that. And I pray and hope that you are at a place to say that as well. So I want to share that with you. I hope that you have peace in your alignment with God, and maybe even if God calls you to it, have the courage and the desire to wrestle with him as well. Be blessed.